Hi guys, welcome to my first book YouTube video, which I'm so excited to make. This is Cash, and he is 5 years old. He is a pandemic puppy, and I love him so much, and he loves to be in here. So he has, shown me. He hasn't told me because he can't talk. I wish he could because he's so sweet. It's okay, buddy. So, he will be in here occasionally. We have another golden retriever. Her name is Rosie. She's 3, but she's a little troublemaker. So sometimes she can be in here only if she's like super sleepy. Okay. I did a quick book review on my Instagram on 3 of these books, and it was rapid fire, and I don't love that. I love this where I can like sit and we can chat and we can talk, and I don't have to feel like I'm like on a time crunch, Obviously I'm not going to be super long-winded, but I think it's important when it comes to books, fiction or nonfiction, to actually talk about them instead of just giving like 2 seconds of like, yeah, this was good, you should read it. So I wanted to do that with these 3, and they're all nonfiction, which is odd that I'm starting with that, but that's fine because I'm just now starting to read fiction again, and I'll do a separate video of books that I've read that have gotten me back into reading fiction. But these, I really wanted a video just to live on my channel for you to watch. If you're in a season of heartbreak in your relationships, or if you are just struggling with like who God called you to be as a woman and what that actually looks like, and how do you tangibly do that, and how do you move forward and through seasons of complete heartbreak and not knowing what to do besides praying and reading the Bible. These books helped me so much, and so I just kind of want to go over each one and read a little bit out of them, and tell you why they helped me, and hopefully it helps you in some way, because I was going through 3 very different seasons of my life. This was over the course of like 17, 18, 19, 20, like 9 years, which is crazy. So we'll start from the beginning. And the first book that I read back in like 2017, maybe 2018, was Captivating, and it's by John and Stasi Eldredge. And they're married, obviously. John Eldredge has a book called Wild at Heart, which Josiah, my husband, has read multiple times, and he loves that book so much. So if you are married or in a relationship or engaged or whatever it is, highly recommend gifting that maybe to the man in your life, because it has helped him understand himself better. And then Captivating has helped me understand myself better. And I read this, when was it? I'd been a Christian for like 3 or 4 years. So we were babies. And I just didn't understand what it fully meant when I would hear women say like, oh, I just want to be the woman that God called me to be. And I didn't get it at the time, and this book really helped differentiate that. Honestly, I should probably skim through it, read it again, because I was doing that earlier before the video to read some of this, and it's just beautiful. The tagline is unveiling the mystery of a woman's soul, which is just a beautiful thing. So the first part that I wanted to read, she says, a woman in the presence of a good man, a real man, loves being a woman. His strength allows her feminine heart to flourish. His pursuit draws out her beauty, and a man in the presence of a real woman loves being a man. Her beauty arouses him to play the man. It draws out his strength. She inspires him to be a hero. And I thought that was beautiful. And then also, to experience the strength of a man is to have him speak on your behalf. For when men abuse with words, we are pierced. Their strength has wounded us. When they are silent, we are starved. They have offered no strength. They have abandoned us. But when they speak with us, hear us, offer their words to us and on our behalf, something in our hearts is able to rest. How are you is one of the simplest and most loving questions John has ever asked me. As women, we sometimes long for someone strong to stand between us and the vicious assaults of our enemy. Basically, the premise of this book is there's 3 things that she says that is like at the core of us as women that we want and that we desire. And when we are operating out of those things and those things are flourishing in our life, we are who God called us to be as women. And I had such a hard time with that, just as a new Christian, especially in the first couple of years, being like, yeah, I've heard that, I want that, but what does that actually mean? And she kind of breaks it down into 3 categories. And she says, let's see. She says, we think you'll find that every woman in her heart of hearts longs for 3 things. Am I bothering you? He's snoring. Okay. To be romanced. So we think you'll find that every woman in her heart of hearts longs for 3 things: to be romanced, to play an irreplaceable role in a great adventure, and to unveil beauty. That's what makes a woman come alive. And if those 3 things aren't operating, I have learned since reading this book 7-8 years ago, if those things are not tangible in my life, if I'm not experiencing those, feeling those, if I'm not feeling romanced, if I'm not playing an irreplaceable role in a great adventure with my husband, and I'm not feeling beautiful from the inside out, little note there, I don't feel alive. I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfortable. I feel like I have to, as I've worked on this in therapy, and it might sound a little therapy talkish here, but like if I am not operating in those 3 systems as best as I can and as best as my husband can, then I am coming up out of myself. And to me, that means like I'm not staying true to myself, to my heart, to the woman that God made me, and I'm having to make myself feel pretty with X, Y, and Z. Or if I'm not feeling romanced, I have to come up out of myself and do the thing for myself that makes me feel seen and makes me feel wanted instead of my husband doing it. Or if we're not going on any kind of adventure, and I don't just mean big trips, that's like a metaphor really, I just mean in the grand scheme of life. If I don't feel like I'm a part of what my husband is pursuing and what he's doing and supporting him and doing this thing that only we can do together, if I'm not in that role and being his helper, then I feel like I have to come up out of myself and I start acting masculine and I start being and it's like, I wish I would have known those things that I just learned in the last couple years. I wish I would have known that, but this was like a good introduction to how actually you can, because a lot of people talk about right now like being in your feminine and the masculine and blah blah, and I'm talking about it in a biblical way, which I know John and Stacey Eldredge are as well. So I think, and I know the only way that I've come to have so much peace in my heart is because I've been able to relax in my feminine state rather than, and my husband has been able to step up in his masculine, and the only way he can step up and be a man and be the one that God has called him to be is if I surrender and he steps up. It's like this, and it's a dance, okay? And this book, I promise, is worth reading. It was so helpful back then, and now it's even helping me in this moment. So, yeah. And now, honestly, it's like all coming back to me and reminding me, which is really cool because I forgot. It's so basic. I love when books, there's a fly. I love when books just like kind of come back around and they're so relevant in the times that we are living in. So captivating. I'll put these links to these books in the description. Second book, it's actually this one. I read it. And these are in the order in which they happened in my life. It's Not Supposed to Be This Way by Lysa. Terkryest. It says, finding unexpected strength when disappointments leave you shattered. I don't know if I have to say anything else. If you haven't read, if you're a Christian, you haven't read any, and you're a woman, and you haven't read any Lysa Terkryest, I don't even know if I'm saying her last name right, but I hope I am, book, I highly recommend it. She was actually the first author that I read as a Christian. I read her book Uninvited, and I felt like she was reading like my diary, honestly. And anytime had been going through something really difficult in the past, there was a book for it, and it was coming out. So really any of her titles of books, probably you could look at it and be like, oh, I need that. This season of my life, nothing was going the way. It was not supposed to be that way, basically, just like the title. Our marriage was going through a really rough time after me having a heart transplant and us getting married in a pandemic, and it just threw us for a whirlwind. Basically a year after my transplant, I finally got like back to baseline to then try to build myself up, and then mentally everything went downhill from there for me and Josiah. And he was having his own struggles, and we've talked about this specific. We have our like own version of each other's stories of this season of life on the Ruin to Rise podcast that I've done. So I'll link that also, that episode of his specifically, because nothing I say here isn't something that hasn't already shared. But we were just going through a season where I was really struggling mentally after transplant, and he was really struggling too, on a caretaker side of things, and it was really difficult, and he leaned on, alcohol too much, and the process that God has brought him through is just like the most beautiful thing with that. But at this time in our life, it was a process, and it wasn't supposed to be that way in my head and in his head. Like, our marriage wasn't supposed to be that way. Things were falling apart. Like, there was so much hurt and just so many questions and doubts and fears, honestly, just like stirring. And that's not fun to live with. We were living in an apartment and just like clashing all the time because there was so much stuff going on internally that we both needed to deal with. And I honestly, like, this book helped me through that season and helped me, not lose my mind. There was one, where is it? I dog-eared the page. There was one thing that was really helpful. So she says, this is how we, too, can surrender the weight of our long-suffering journeys to God, by having a higher perspective in our present realities. The seemingly impossible work of redemption is always possible with God. In other words, we need to remember the difference between news and truth. News comes to us to tell us what we are dealing with. Truth comes from God and then helps us process all we are dealing with. News and truth aren't always one and the same. My sweet friend reminded me of this a few years ago. An email sent to me about a difficulty I was walking through, and she said, "Lysa, this is news. This is not the truth." What the doctor gave me was news, honest news based on test results and medical facts. But what I have access to is a truth that transcends news. The restoration that is impossible with man's limitation is always possible for a limitless God. I find myself looking at the word impossible a little different lately. Impossible, when looked at in light of my friend's note, could be completely different if I just stuck a little apostrophe between the two letters. Well, that's kind of cheesy. But the idea of, one, we are going to go through seasons of long suffering. That's like God himself has done that through Jesus. Like, it's been he is okay with letting us. Now, I don't know why. I don't know why. I think it's a gift, as we know this. And so this idea of remembering things that are news and truth and separating the two, when we were going through what we were going through, it's like yeah, there was news of, okay, this is happening, this happened today, oh, and then this happened, and kind of like headline, think of like the headlines in the news, like this mistake was made, this word was said and it was harmful, this happened, and over time that gets really overwhelming, obviously, and it can easily start to turn into, you think that that's the truth, you think this is all that there's ever going to be, this is how our life is always going to be. But at the end of the day, if you can silence yourself and get in the quiet and remember and go back to the truth, go back to God's word, and just remember what he has said to you despite what your circumstances look like. Like, that's what I did for years, years and years, when nothing looked like I thought that it would, and it wasn't supposed to be this way, and it didn't make sense to me, at all. I was like, I had this dream of getting married and having this beautiful wedding, which we did, but I was really sick, and then going on our honeymoon, which we didn't, and getting pregnant, and I'm not going to carry my own babies, and just all these things that I thought, and it was like the opposite, and it wasn't supposed to be that way in my mind. But sometimes I think God just allows us to go through things for whatever reason, and sometimes we don't get to know that. Sometimes we can look back on it and try to like see the good in it, however like we choose to process it and move through it. But I think when you're in the middle of something like that and so many things are happening at once, one, you have to get yourself to peace. That's something that I've learned, and it's so, so important, whether that means physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever that means for you and looks like. Get yourself to a place of peace. Stop listening to the news. Stop like recycling and rehashing everything that is going on or everything that has happened in the past, and focus on the truth. And from there, peace, obviously, you're already in it. And from there, that's when the most powerful thing can actually happen in your life, because you're sitting there and you're not doing anything, but that's actually what God wants sometimes, when our minds are just running crazy, when things aren't going the way that we thought that they would, and we try to figure our way out of it. Because that's what I was doing for a long time. It's like, well, if I can do this, and if I can do this, and maybe I'll try this, and I'll help him here, and I'll do this. And it was like, I'm never going to change anyone. You do not have that power. Only God can change people, and only people can make the decision to change for themselves. You cannot force anyone. And the best thing that you can do is focus on yourself and your health. And that's what I started doing, and focusing on the truth, and focusing on, okay, who did God make me to be? Like, this person, this woman, this is what I want. And my husband, no matter, like, if he quit drinking today, am I the woman that I want to be for that person who has made that decision and walked that walk? It's like, oh, I could probably do, it would probably do me some good to work on myself and not worry about what was happening around me, but what's happening within me. And so I think that is what helped the most. This book was, she writes just like so real and vulnerable, and this is good. She says, I know I must walk through God's process before I see his fulfilled promise. So simple, but it's one of those, like, for us, yes, eventually we walked through that process. We got to the other side. Josiah doesn't drink anymore, and we have so much peace in our home because we have peace within ourselves, because we both took the time to heal after, I guess, through a season when it wasn't supposed to be the way that we thought it was going to be. We held on to so much resentment. It was just a mess. And there was a lot to clean up, I would say, on both of our parts. And that's just how we walked through it. That's the very simple version, if you want, how everything actually went down, detailed. There was a separation in there. All that is on the podcast as well. So I'll link that episode too. And last but not least, Waymaker by Ann Voskamp. It's called Finding the Way to the Life You've Always Dreamed of. And this is a perfect one to end on because that's what I'm doing. And my best friend sent me this book when I was at treatment for my mental health out in California. I went to this like holistic facility for two different times, but this was the second time for 30 days. She sent me this in like a gift basket. Sweetest thing ever, and so needed at the time when I was struggling so much with just, what am I doing with my life? Like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with this second chance I've been given? What's the point? I don't even want to be here. I was really struggling, and this book helped me so much. Her writing is so beautiful. If you've never read any of her stuff, I would start with The Broken Way. That was the first book I ever read of hers, and it's so good. This one is equally as good. I can't really pick favorites, but this is kind of what I was talking about stillness and how to get back to peace when everything is going on. This is kind of the same thing. But she's talking specifically about stillness. And she says, when everything stills, you can see your reflection, see it into the depths of your soul, see the contours of things. To fully see a situation, to see the lay of the land, to see the way forward necessitates stillness. Still hearts still seek God. When there's no agitation of soul, there can be a revelation of God. The only way to know what you're about, the only way to know the way you're about is to so intimately know God that you see yourself as God sees you. Which again goes back to how God sees you in Captivating. I did not plan this. Like, I lightly just had little bullet points of what I wanted to talk about, but this is tying together so nicely. This is good. I love when that happens. And this is the first video, so I'm excited to make more of these. Also, continued. Something in me settles. Stillness is knownness. If it's true that our deepest desire is to be seen and known, as women, we know that, then we are only seen and known as much as we are still. There is no seeing when nothing is stilled. When waters no agitation, no revelation is known. She's such a good writer. Stirred waters, blurred sight. I need to grab a pen, sketch this Red Sea road, write it down. I don't think I noticed that before, that God is all the verbs in the story of the way through the sea. In my stillness, God moves. Maybe if I'd actually be still and not struggle to be God, I wouldn't struggle to trust God. Okay, one more. Her writing is so good. I can't get over this. I need how does she do this? Your strength is your stillness, because your stillness says you're trusting him still. Your strength is your stillness. Which that seems so counterintuitive to anything. And especially as women, it's like, if you had and I had been operating out of this, no, I have to do something. I have to and that's movement. That's agitation. And then if it's let's take a break, let's slow down, let's be still, then God can reveal, then God can do the moving. I don't have to do it. And then when God does it, healing comes. And that's actually what you're after. At the end of the day, we're all after that. We all want to feel whole. We want to feel our wounds healed. We just want to feel like we are loved and the women that God called us to be. That's all we want to be. And these 3 books just really helped me on that road, really helped me in really hard seasons of my life, and my marriage, and within myself, and things that I was just struggling with, and identity. And they're all blue and white, which is just kind of beautiful. So this was way more in depth, and I liked that so much more than the Instagram thing. So perhaps we do it again. I haven't really finished a nonfiction book in a long time because I kind of just grew out of that season and just kind of stopped reading altogether. And then I started reading fiction. So that's kind of where I'm at.